Dance a little bit.
Yeah.
Barry, that was awesome.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you very much.
Before we get started, and we got a lot of information to give everybody today. Before we get started, I want to talk about today's podcast. Olufsen & Jones, CPA. Olufsen & Jones are chartered professional accountants with experience and knowledge in key areas that are important and valuable to their clients. They offer a full range of services for corporate, personal, and not-for-profit organizations, providing made-to-measure practical solutions in audit, accounting, taxation, financial management, controllership, business consulting, and more. You can contact them at 204-338-5972. Barry, you got a good accountant?
I do.
Yeah.
Very good. Kept me out of jail so far. So that's a good start.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
so before we get started, let me do an introduction to the man sitting next to me here, whose name is Barry Weinstein. He was born in Melville, Saskatchewan, but lived in Winnipeg since he was 9. So his roots are here in Winnipeg. He's a Winnipegger. Married to a beautiful woman for 38 years with 2 grown kids that still live here in the city. He's an on-again, off-again fitness person. According to him, more off than on, except for Fit Club, where he seems to be having a little bit of success. Enjoys cycling, fishing, golfing, and spending time at the cabin. Professionally, he went to dental school at the U of M for a few years. We'll leave it at that. He works in a large group practice. He loves the camaraderie of his team, but for the past 12 to 13 years, he has focused a large part of his practice on screening and treating sleep-breathing disorders. Did I mention that you're a dentist? Did I say that part yet? Okay, well, he is.
Okay.
So, anyways, but now he's focused a little more on the sleep part of things. It's a huge and growing field, and he loves to change people's lives. So, Mr. Barry Weinstein, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me here.
No problem. I got one quick question. We're going to start this off.
Yeah.
How do you stay married for 38 years? But before you answer that, I'm going to give you 2 rules. You can't say happy life, happy wife,
Okay.
and you can't just say agree with everything she says. I've gotten that advice twice, and I refuse to listen to it. So you can answer that now, or you can answer it throughout the podcast if you want. What did you have?
Well, I don't know that I have a definite answer. You took away 2 of the, definitely the most popular ones.
Yeah,
Stay at the
I don't
office.
know.
Would that one work?
But stay at the
Stay at
office.
the office.
Let me tell you, this whole isolation thing and quarantine thing hasn't been a great thing for the marriage, but we've managed to get through it. I think she's looking forward to Monday, but that's okay.
Mondays when you're back. So do you think we're going to have more babies, or do you think we're going to have more divorces after this is going to happen?
That's a good question. I think it could be 50-50.
That's good. That's a safe one.
Can we talk about that?
Sure.
Just go right into that?
You got
Because
it.
actually I put a post out, and we're just going to get right into it because it's super relevant,
Yeah,
man.
absolutely.
So you're a dentist. You guys are allowed to open on Monday. They're opening a massage. Like, you can do massages now. You can do patios,
Yep.
right? As long as everything is under 10 and PPEs are in place. So a couple things. Actually, I got 24 comments within a couple hours here. So, first of all, I feel like it's not that it's rushed. I think the inevitable, somebody posted here, whether they do it now or whether they do it in a couple weeks, there's going to be a spike, right? As soon as we get around each other, we're going to get a little bit more comfortable, and, eventually people just aren't going to care, like you always say, right? And it's going to get to that point, whatever, I'm not 6 feet away from you. They've opened up all the businesses, who cares? And then they're going to be testing more, so there is going to be another spike, right? So whether they do it in 2 weeks or whether they do it now, I think there's going to be a spike regardless. How big that spike is, it just depends on that. And so from a business standpoint, I messaged a friend of mine. She's a massage therapist. I said, hey, I'll take a massage tomorrow, right? And she's like, no way, like nothing. We don't really know what's going. Like, nobody even knows. They just all of a sudden like, hey, Rick, you're open Monday. And so dentists, like, you're like, hey, I'm excited to get back to Monday. I'm like, wow, right?
Yeah.
Because not a lot of people are in that position. So how is it that you are so like, yeah, we're open up, like, you got to rehire your staff. You got, you know what I mean? Like, how is that all working for you?
Well, totally, and it's a big unknown right now.
It's
Yes,
still
we
unknown.
said, Brian Pallister said, yeah, we can open Monday,
Yeah.
and we're allowed to, but it's going to be a very gradual process. It's still very dependent on the Manitoba Dental Association guidelines too, as to how we can open and what we can do. And one of the biggest things that we have been restricted from doing is using our dental equipment, our drills, hate to use the word, hand pieces. They are they tend to aerosolize things, so they throw things into the air, and that's been a big part of even an emergency treatment, which has been allowed only over the past 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Using the hand pieces, and that has been kept to a minimum, and real precautions when using that. So even to start off, I think it's going to be very limited what we're going to be doing. It'll be a lot of diagnosis and looking, and if there's some serious problems, maybe some extractions done. But I think it's not just going to be hop back in where we left off, have a full slate of patients.
Yeah.
The whole thing, the number of people coming to the office is going to be kept to a minimum.
Yeah.
The number allowed. And we don't know yet, because the dental, Pallister said we can, but it's the Dental Association that'll give us the guidelines as how we get started.
Okay. And I think it's just there should be a little bit more warning for everybody, because there's a couple problems that they're going to face. Number one, if they're going to first of all, the Dental Association has got to come up with the proper procedures for you to open. It's just like the massage therapy. With gyms, there isn't a governing sanction, so they're just going to blanket us with big box gyms, which I think is unfair. The big box gyms, their capacities are hundreds. Our capacities here are in the tens.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think there's a massively big difference between the two, and we can actually police social distancing within our facility because we have a coach that's leading each session.
Right.
Whereas you go into a big box gym, it's a free for all of equipment.
Yeah.
So you could be walking on a treadmill right next to a person. 9 out of 10 times you go to these places and you don't have that choice. But that's a different rant. The second problem you're going to have
Next podcast.
Yeah.
The second problem that everybody's going to be had. So if they're saying, and we're going to assume that you guys all got to wear gloves, you got to wear the PPEs, you got to wear goggles, and you got to wear face masks and face shields and full body suits, but none of these are available.
Exactly.
So it's like, how is it that, yes, your businesses are going to be, you're open Monday, right?
Yeah.
And the problem that a lot of people are going to face, so you're in Polo Park, whoa, I couldn't even imagine the rent. Now your landlord is like, hey, well, you're allowed to open full rent.
Right.
Is that mall open? Or?
Yeah. So first of all, we're not in the mall anymore. We used to be in the mall. We were in the mall for many, many years.
You
And
used to be in the basement.
We were in the basement many years ago. Then you're right. That's a good. You guys are
remember?
too young. I can't believe you
we used to
remember
bowl
that.
there.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But in 1986, when they rebuilt the mall and put the second level on, we'd been on the main floor from 1986 till 5 years ago.
Okay.
At which time the mall, well, that's a bit of a long story, but they told us they didn't want a dental office anymore, and we moved outside the mall. We're in the old CKY building, right beside the mall, which has turned out to be actually a fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
We were very worried about leaving the mall, that we we're going to lose all our traffic, and as it turns out, it's been a big plus for us, and people like the fact they don't have to go into the mall. We have our own parking. We have windows, which was such
I know. That was the one. That's why I didn't block these windows off here, and I love West. There's big windows out front.
Well, let me tell you, when we were in the mall for all those years, you didn't see daylight. I mean, there was no, so that was a big change. Anyhow, the rent is.
Why would they not want you in the mall? What was the reason behind that? Just out of curiosity.
Okay, so the reason behind that was at the time they said they didn't want on the main floors and on the upper floor, they wanted only retail. They didn't want really professional office. So that was kind of, I don't want to say too much. They could.
No,
be
fair
listing
enough.
a
That actually doesn't.
but
That
as
makes
it-
sense, to be
okay.
honest. Yeah.
But as it turns out, there's a new dental office in the mall that opened about a year
around
ago.
the
So
corner.
Those
I guess-
guys.
But
Those
you know what?
guys.
I think the trend of it, right? And now with the online shopping, like I've been in Polo Park, and they're not full capacity, right? And so now they're like, we'll take whatever we can. Yeah,
Exactly.
I was wondering
I
if they
agree.
kept that or not.
and I think
I'm
it's going
sorry?
to be like that for a lot of
I do too.
malls and strip malls, and they're just going to have to. I remember when I was first looking for this place, and I just accepted that the high rent was normal,
Right.
Because there wasn't much real estate, and now, with how much stuff is popping up, like
Exactly.
housing is crazy right now. Like they've got so many new houses everywhere, but no bodies to fill them.
Right, exactly. And as far as retail, I mean, the outlet mall, not that it's booming, but but that whole
It exists.
South Keniston area is
Yeah.
a whole new shopping area, and there's Polo Park used to be it still probably is, as far as indoor malls, the destination mall in Winnipeg, but I just think overall it's not as busy as they were.
I think that outlet mall would probably be close second because you have the IKEA, you have all the other stuff, there, right? So that general area.
The problem with that, and I'd like to actually get back to this, is I don't like going there. Like, I like the outlet mall itself, but I don't go to the external places except for maybe the pizza joint. And like, I don't want to go outside, especially in Winnipeg. Like, this is not Vegas where it's 30 degrees all the time, right?
But you know what's funny? If you look at all the malls, like Northgate Mall, even Garden City Mall, they're all building the small little one in the parking lot. The little. So why are they doing that? I agree. Why are we in one place?
Yeah,
we should be skywalking everywhere, but for some reason they're making us go out to the little places.
Like Portage Place has it together.
I do. Why is that not the best place? You can skywalk everywhere.
Exactly.
Why?
Well, hopefully it will be again.
I don't know why.
We'll see what happens there.
I would love to be in there.
I would love to be in
But the problem is
there.
there's no park. I guess they have the underground parking.
Well, they do, yeah.
It floods once a year.
But it's underground. It's warm. So if you want to pay for it, there's nothing wrong with it, right?
Exactly. And then you just go right to, you leave from your house. You don't have to touch the minus 50.
Yeah.
And you go right to that underground parking.
So maybe one other podcast will solve the commercial property dilemmas.
Yeah.
But you are here for a reason, and I know you're a busy man, so we're going to get this back on track. But I do feel like to kind of reiterate your point. Yes, I feel like there's a lot of unknowns, and we've been dealing with that for the last 6 weeks. We've kind of just been going off the seat of our pants and moving forward. So, you're concerned about how are you going to adopt the new policies, whether it's you, whether it's your governing body. Right. Great questions, no doubt. And I'm sure you're going to have to navigate those waters, too, for the next
for sure.
4 weeks.
I feel like I'm ahead. I feel like everything that they're doing, I've already predicted. I'm not saying I'm some type of, but I do some gym consulting as well, some business consulting, and this is the fears. I actually just wrote a whole 60-minute keynote on it this morning. Do you know what I mean? Because I can see the patterns, and the thing that this one happened very soon. Like, if they told me that gyms are open on Monday, I wouldn't be ready, and and then the whole weight of everybody expecting you to have all the answers.
Right.
So the fact that you're sitting here and you're calm, cool, collective is awesome. But I think you nailed it. You're going to be doing a little bit more diagnostic versus doing the actual work.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So that makes sense. So let me ask you this: why? Let's just start with you.
Yeah.
Because you're getting blanketed with massage and hair salons, right? So why dentist? Why are they in phase 1?
Well, I would guess they're, not quite an essential service, but maybe partially an essential service. There is a need, and a lot of people. I mean, even though over the past 6 weeks we've been, and a lot of dental offices have been covering emergency services. Like, we've had someone at the office pretty much every day looking after, emergencies. But so I guess to a certain extent, it is a somewhat essential service, not certainly up there, with medical care, especially in these times. But I guess I can sort of see it being one of the first ones to.
I would actually disagree with you with respect to how important it is. I feel like...
And sorry, Barry, this is what we do. You okay with this?
Yeah.
Okay, you chose to come on the show. You watch what we do.
Yeah.
We go back and forth on all kinds of stuff.
Set me
We
up.
don't get offended. We just, hopefully you don't. So
I feel like your service is just as important as any other service with respect to any other health professional. Like, you can't leave this for too long. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, your oral care is important. That's actually one of the things that if somebody ever said, "Hey, what's 5 things that you regret in life?" It's taking care of my teeth earlier in life. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I feel like you can't be away from your dentist for too long. So I agree. I think you should be phase 1. You know what I mean? That's the way I see the dentist anyways. Yeah. Certainly more important than...
I like to hear you say it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, okay, but I don't get is dentists, massage therapists, hair salons. And I'm not bashing anybody. Please don't direct message me after this. Yeah. This is just the thoughts that are going through our head for other businesses we're phase 3, right? Yeah. And so I'm fine with that. I'm not in any way panic. I'm not upset. I just want to know, how is it that a dentist is socially distancing when they got to go into your mouth? How is it that a massage therapist is social distancing when they got to touch your body? How is it that a hair salon, hairstylist, is social distancing when they're cutting your hair? Like, they're right next to you. You know what I mean? If you go into a grocery store, I could stand 6 feet from you because we don't have to be in contact. The person that is running my bill through, there can be touch-free everything. Tap. We only do credit card. There's a shield here. That person's got their PPEs on. But how is it that these hands-on services are allowed to be into phase 1.
Right.
And sorry again, please, guys. I know there's a couple
a good
people that are
question.
going to get
No,
mad,
it's a
good
but I really want to know that.
Well, I can tell you, when you see what we are going to be having to wear and cover ourselves,
Yeah.
our rooms, all our equipment.
Yeah.
Apparently, the rooms have to be closed rooms.
Mm-hmm.
Like they can't, a lot of our operatories have, open door, no doors.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the rooms that are going to be used initially all have to be closed rooms. So either they have to have doors, or
Mm-hmm.
we will have to hang, drape them in.
Really?
Yeah, I think if you saw, I could show you a picture on the phone what we're going to look like when it does come time to doing some work. That first of all, I don't know how we're going to manage, but secondly, if we're not scared already, it'd be
Yeah.
more.
So you guys are going to be taking extra precautions. But
Yes.
I just feel
Yes.
like the whole contact, like being within centimeters of each other, I think that should almost be a little bit of a red flag if they're concerned about an outbreak. So that's just my thing. I mean, if you want to do that here, well, before we close, we were spraying every piece of equipment. Our plan is to not use any equipment. Our plan is to space and have markers on the floor, right? Where we're going to be limiting capacity. There's going to be time between sessions. Like we got that all planned out as well.
Yeah.
But yet our businesses aren't going to get pushed open till phase 3.
Right.
I
Well,
think, right?
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, but trust me, it's going to open, and it's going to happen in such a gradual, protected way that it's not going to be like like it used to be, not even close. It's going to be and we don't even know yet how it's going to unfold. So when we say Monday, when I go into work on Monday, I have no idea what to expect. And chances are I'm not seeing too many people, and I'm going to be dressed like a Martian. And, so
And you know what? And honestly, like a lot of people, like I'm not going to go see my dentist. I feel like that's too close, right? Even my massage, as sore as I am, I'm not. It's not that I'm afraid to get sick. It's just, it's if we're practicing social distancing, I feel like we need to do it.
I agree.
Right?
Yeah.
Like we're spaced out properly, right?
Yeah,
Like we're
yeah.
at least far. But if I was sitting right next to you, Rick, I would be uncomfortable. And I've been around you for the past 6 weeks or whatever,
Right.
And the thing that bothers me, and just about the gym alone, and I think you coincide with this, is that so they're putting us into phase 3 because they're like, well, you can work out on your own, right? And if that was the case, then these gyms wouldn't exist. If I was able to extract my own teeth, I would. I could, but it's not going to be.
You can
enjoyable.
also cut your own hair.
I can cut.
You can cook your own food,
Yeah.
but
That's
restaurants exist.
Yeah,
Exactly.
And so,
That's true, yeah.
but for the past 6 weeks, like they can be like, well, and I don't know who's making these phases. For the past 6 weeks, they're like, well, yeah, but people can just go outside and walk. But yeah, but you don't want us to be around each other.
Right.
You're closing the park, so now you're limiting us to streets. The other day, I had this woman with her 2 kids on bikes behind her pull into traffic, oncoming traffic, because she's trying to socially. So you want us outside, you want us working out. But then you got to remember, up until yesterday, it was still minus 30 out.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So
It
it's
was
like
cold,
nobody's going outside, man.
Right.
And most people just don't have the ability to do these home workouts. And as good as we make them, and we're getting a lot of great feedback, it's difficult. Some people have tiles that they got to work out
I'm
on.
sure.
And nobody was preprepared for this with dumbbells or mats.
Yeah.
And, you know what I
Well,
mean?
You've done a great job of making it, available to do it.
Yes.
That's for sure.
Yes.
And easy to do.
Before we get into why we have you here,
Yeah.
let's talk about your fitness real quick. So you mentioned in your intro that you're an on-again, off-again fitness guy.
Yeah.
You have found that Fit Club has been the best results so far.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why has this been successful and the others haven't? And as soon as you're done that, we're going to get into your thing. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. So first of all, we went. A friend of ours who had been going for quite a while sort of recommended it. We knew she'd been doing it, so my daughter and I decided to go to the Fit Club West, which is very close to our home. We went to watch a class, then went and joined the class. I think one of the things was I loved the fact that it's a half-hour routine. You're done. Work up a sweat. It's been very good. I have to say the location for us was perfect, close to home, and enjoyed the people for sure, like the instructors and the personal attention. I have some back issues, and as a matter of fact, I'd started at Fit Club, was going for a few months, and then I had an acute episode with my back, and I had to really had to stop for a while. Could barely walk. Anyhow, when I finally came back, I was working with mostly Candace and David because of the times I went there, and I just found they were very I let them know about my problem. They're very in tune, and they sort of adapted things to accommodate my problems. But I just felt it. I don't know. It clicked with me. It was the right thing. And on top of that, the hours when the classes are offered, I was telling Rick before, I never thought I'd be a person that gets up early and works
Early
out
morning,
before work. Never.
Me and
Even
you,
though
Barry.
I'm up,
Yeah.
I'm up. I might be drinking, but I never thought I'd be working out. Anyhow, my daughter and I started doing it together, going to the 6:30 classes. Done by 7. Work up a good sweat. Go home, shower at work. It was fantastic. And the few days here and there, when I'd miss a class for whatever reason, I almost was feeling guilty.
Nice.
That's
it,
was,
right
like
there.
I was craving it. Like this is
That's it.
this is not me.
Yeah.
But anyhow, and so we've stuck with it, and with the unfortunately, since things closed, we've been trying to do it at home as much as possible.
Yeah.
And it's definitely workable for sure. So
That's good. Okay, so let's
Yeah.
get to why you're here. So you've been a dentist for a handful
way
of
too
years.
long. Yes.
A handful of years. We're not going to
let's say no. Yeah.
We're not going to talk about dentistry. We're going to talk about this new and up and coming industry that you are really jumping into, which is sleep apnea. And that's actually why we had you here. And in fact, it's funny that you're here because Jerome, the guy behind all the magic that you see on camera, he suffers from bad sleeping.
Yes.
And he snores quite a bit.
Yes.
Right. In
Yes.
fact,
Jerome, can you confirm that?
in fact, his
Yes, I do. I'll confirm it.
Yeah.
well, his wife was concerned enough to videotape or to record him, right? So I watched this, and yeah, he's a heavy snorer.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the importance of sleep
Yeah.
for overall fitness, and then how can you help people who suffer from sleep apnea?
Okay.
Okay.
So, first of all, let me just explain the difference between snoring and sleep apnea.
Perfect.
Okay. I'm not sure if everyone's aware of it, but snoring is basically your throat muscles, the back of your tongue vibrating against your throat. That's what makes the noise. It's vibrating, but it's vibrating so quickly you're still getting oxygen. Snoring is more a problem for the other person in the room than the person
That's good to
than the
know.
person who's doing it.
That's good to
Seriously,
know, okay.
that's more. And I get tons of the patients. I shouldn't say tons, but a lot of the patients I get, it's the wife sending the husband in. I have a poster in the operatory because he snores and it's driving him crazy, or vice versa. But it's more common in males. Anyhow, so snoring is basically just vibrating of the throat. It's loud and noisy. Sleep apnea is where the throat's not just vibrating, but it closes for certain periods of time.
Okay.
Like the airway closes completely, and an apneic event is where it closes for 10 seconds or longer, which is very common. Most people that snore, not everybody that snores has sleep apnea, but most people do. Probably 80% of people that snore have a certain degree of sleep apnea. And sleep apnea can be categorized, it's mild, moderate, severe. There's different types of sleep apnea.
So can you give us an example of how would you even know if you had one or the other, first of all?
One or the other, snoring.
So if you're just snoring or if you have an apnea problem.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Very good question. So, one thing is, and this is not a true diagnosis, that your spouse or someone films you or tells you, hey, you stop breathing. You stop breathing again. Okay, but the only true test is to have a sleep test done. Okay? Sleep tests used to be, you had to go sleep at the hospital overnight. That was at the Misericordia Hospital, have a sleep clinic. You had to wait about 1.5 years to get in and sleep overnight, sleep in a strange bed with 1 million electrodes and people watch. But now, the past number of years, they do a lot of home sleep tests where you just take a little monitor home with like a pulse oximeter, measures your oxygenation. Anyhow, it's a very, very simple, convenient thing. You do it in your own bed and you drop the machine off and it's read by a physician. And that's how it's determined whether you have sleep apnea and what degree of sleep apnea you have. That test will say, and it's not 100% determinant, the home sleep test, but it's pretty darn close. It's pretty darn close. I was just going to say one thing. And one thing that's very important to mention is sleep apnea is a medical condition.
Okay.
I cannot diagnose sleep apnea. I can diagnose snoring. I know what snoring is, and someone says, well, I just snore and I feel okay otherwise. You don't know until you've had a sleep test. But the important thing is only can be diagnosed by a doctor. These sleep tests are read by a doctor. What dentists can do are help with the treatment, for sure, and help with the screening of patients. We see patients all the time. I can tell, I talk to patients about snoring, and then I can send them on to whether to go directly to get a sleep test, go speak to their doctor. I can guide them how to get a proper diagnosis.
So would you almost be like first line of defense?
Yes,
Yeah?
exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
There
And
you
we
go.
are dentists, we say, and that's why it's such a huge growing area. First of all, sleep apnea is huge, so much more prevalent than people are aware. I won't go into the numbers now, but it's huge. It's said, latest figures say 1 billion people in the world have sleep apnea, and 80% of them are undiagnosed. Okay,
So
that's in the
why has it become like an epidemic then? Is
It's-
it weight related?
very much so.
Okay.
Very much so.
So would you
Okay.
say that the reason why is
That's one
mostly
of
because of the weight?
Well, I think one of the reasons is people are just much more aware of sleep apnea. No one really, years ago, even the medical profession, I don't think paid that close attention to sleep apnea.
Mm-hmm.
I could go into that too, but I think weight is definitely a huge aspect of it.
So how would that play a factor? So I'm heavier than I should be. So how are you saying that plays a factor? Is there
So
like
it's
restrictions or
basically,
what's going on?
Yeah, constriction.
Yeah.
Basically neck size. In men, if you have a larger than a 17-inch neck, there's a good chance that you're going to have,
Really?
some sleep apnea. Yeah.
What happens if you have 17-inch pythons?
Then you can strangle somebody if they tell you you're snoring too loud. You don't even have to listen to them.
Did you write that down, Rick?
17-inch pythons. This guy over here.
Exactly. I was going to say, and this could be another question, but when people, have sleep apnea, or even if it's just snoring, there's a few things people can do at home to try and, minimize it. And the three things that I tell them are: one, weight loss, but not everyone's heavy. It's not, it's generally heavier people, but you could have an older, petite little woman who's got sleep apnea. But generally, if someone's heavier, weight loss is one thing. Sleep on your side. Can't sleep on your back. You sleep on your back, everything it's going to be much worse. And no alcohol, especially at night.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, any alcohol at night, alcohol's a muscle relaxant. It's going to make it much worse. I don't know if you've heard or know people, had a few drinks and, they're going to town.
Okay.
So those are things people can do on their own.
Yeah.
It's not. It might help. It's not necessarily going to get rid of it.
Okay. So can somebody just go and measure their neck, and if they're at like 17, like, man, I need to lose some weight?
Yeah. It could be 17 who's just a big guy. That's not, that's one.
Remember the old waist, the
Yeah.
BMI?
Yeah,
Like we
well,
never use
BMI is a factor too. No,
Yeah.
BMI is a factor. There's actually a screening test that we use. There's a few different one of the screening tests, and it does take into consideration BMI, takes into consideration neck size, takes into consideration whether somebody's actually seen them stop breathing.
So for people out there, explain what the BMI is.
The body mass index, yeah. Well, so you could probably explain that better. But generally, if someone is above 10% over their average BMI, or what their BMI
That's about a
should
24, right? I believe.
I
It's
think so.
like normal.
I think so.
Guys, if you want to Google it, right? Always
Yeah.
Google things. And if you're above, I believe 24 is the norm. So they
Right.
take your height, weight, and waist
Yes.
circumference, and that'll tell you if you're healthy or unhealthy,
Right.
kind of general guidelines.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So you gave us three things that we can do to potentially stop at home. I see you've got a device beside you there.
Yeah.
Is that for helping you stop snoring or for the apnea?
Both.
Okay.
So
Can we open
it's-
it up? Can we
yeah,
look at that
sure.
on camera? See what
Yeah.
we're working with?
So the appliances that dentists make, I should back up a little bit.
Sure.
Treatment for sleep apnea, they're very limited when someone is diagnosed with sleep apnea, and and they usually categorize as mild, moderate, or severe. There's only a limited number of treatments for it. If they've tried the lying on their side and lost some weight and not drinking, and the chances are they could still have a certain degree of sleep apnea. So the treatments for sleep apnea are really only three. One being Cpap, which I'm not sure if you're all familiar with Cpap. Cpap is a big...
machine.
Cpap stands for... Exactly.
Darth Vader machine.
Exactly. Continuous positive air pressure.
Okay.
Cpap is the gold standard for treating sleep apnea, especially more severe cases. And it's the gold standard because it's pushing oxygen into your lungs all night. There's no two ways about it. You're getting oxygen.
Yeah.
The problem with CPAP is probably has definitely less than a 50% compliance rate. Meaning people, they can't stick with it. It's uncomfortable. It's cumbersome. People who travel. So it's a lot of failure with CPAP. The next alternative is basically dental appliances, and I'll tell you about them in a second. The third alternative is surgery, where people actually have, tonsils out, adenoids, sometimes more aggressive surgery to make the airway wider. Yeah, that's a last resort and rarely done. People will go back and try CPAP again before they, I think, go to that.
Yeah.
Anyhow, having said that, so a lot of the patients that we treat as dentists are either maybe mild or moderate sleep apnea patients who don't necessarily need CPAP, but they need to be aware that the CPAP nothing's going to be as effective as that. Or we treat a lot of patients who have tried CPAP and failed at it, and they need something, and that's where the dental appliance comes in.
So describe what we're looking at there.
So a dental appliance is basically, there's all kinds of different ones on the market, but they all work under the same principle.
Okay.
They are called mandibular advancement devices. What they do is they're adjustable, and we control the adjustment or help the patient control the adjustment. They move the lower jaw forward slightly when you're sleeping, and we get it set into a comfortable position. What it's basically doing, it used to be thought, you're you're yanking the jaw forward, pulling it forward. We're basically trying to put it in a position preventing the tongue from falling back. By moving the jaw forward, the tongue is attached to your lower jaw. If you can bring the jaw forward slightly, the tongue comes with it. If I had a picture, I could show it opens the airway. You just need to move it a little bit at times. Get that airway open. The snoring's gone. Their oxygenation is better. They're breathing.
How hard is it to get used to that? Is it
so quite easy.
Okay.
And I've worn one myself. I don't wear one now, but I certainly wore one, a few different ones, to try to see what it's like. This particular one that I use, there's, as I say, different ones on the market. This one is one that I found is very it's very strong, it's very robust, but it's small, it's compact, it's a very comfortable one to get used to, and it works on these little elastics. I don't know if you can see here. So these little elastics on the side are what move the lower jaw forward.
Oh, I see.
So by changing the elastics, you can move it a little more, you can move it less, you can move it back, and then the elastics come with different tensions too. So sometimes you move a patient to a certain position, they're comfortable, but the elastic stretches out, so you just change the firmness of the elastic and try to hold them in that position. So all of them, some of them have screws, some of them have some of the earlier ones looked like something out of a Star Trek movie. A lot of hardware on them.
Yeah.
This is a very compact, simple, comfortable, and the fact the change in the elastics, a lot of times when we deliver an appliance to a patient, we follow up with them. They don't have to come in for adjustments. We give them a series of elastics, and we keep in touch with them by email and say, how are you doing? And they say, well, I'm a little better, but I think I need a little more movement. We say, okay, switch it to this elastic. Try it, and, check back with them.
Can you retrain your jaw to eventually not need that? Can you strengthen your jaw muscle, or does that ever change?
That's a good question. Not really. That will tend to fall back to where it was.
Okay.
Sometimes, like I say, basically these are not necessarily moving the tongue. They're just preventing the tongue from falling back. It's more of a stabilizer type. And that's what keeps the airway open.
I feel like that's probably a great solution to the apnea, other than a machine or having to deal with it.
Absolutely.
That seems like a very good way of doing it.
Right. Yeah. Now, it's not effective 100% of the time, and especially in severe people that are severe cases. Yeah. It may improve their sleep apnea, but it's not necessarily going to eliminate it. But.
So off camera, you and I talked about the importance of sleep, generally speaking. So you brought to our attention why some people might not be able to sleep, whether it be snoring or apnea.
Yeah.
What are some other? We get this question. Actually, this is probably our top 5 question: is how do you get better sleep, or how do you fall asleep, or what do you do to get better sleep? What do you got for us? Give us some points here to tell everybody.
So the things that I'm doing and that I'm treating mostly are treating airway issues. People that are, either not necessarily having trouble falling asleep, but once they're asleep, they're stopping breathing, they're gasping, they're not getting a good night's sleep, and which leads to a whole other host of factors. But there's also something called, some tips called sleep hygiene, which you can Google anywhere. It says in order to get a good night's sleep, make sure you sleep in a dark room. Don't watch TV before bed. Don't have any electronics there. Don't eat within a couple hours before you go to bed. Go to sleep and wake up on a regular schedule. So these are things that a person again can try and do, and there's a whole host of, they call it sleep hygiene. Things that you can attempt to do. Mindfulness, trying to get your mind to relax. Well, that's easier said than done, at least for me, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
So,
And what about sleeping aids, prescription pills that put you to sleep? What's your opinion on those?
well, first of all, that's a whole medical thing. It's something I never,
just your personal opinion.
My opinion is, I
personal
think,
opinion.
I don't think, especially now, there's some out there that are, have actually almost no side effects, and I think it's more important to have a good night's sleep than to worry about the fact that you had to take a pill to fall asleep. I think the fact that you have a good night's sleep, or at least a good number of hours of sleep, is far more important than the fact that you have to take a pill. And if it's a psychological thing, I can't sleep without my pill. Oh, sleep is important.
Yeah.
Sleeping is healing. I use that term a lot.
Yeah, I love
Sleeping is healing. And I never, I used to be, before I learned a lot of this, I used to stay up late, and I used to get up early and thought, I'm great, I get up early, I get the most out of my day.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't getting enough sleep, and I would go through periods where I was sleep deprived. Now I'm much more conscious of sleep and trying to get sleep. And I'll tell you what, even with this whole, I've been off work for six weeks now, even though I'm a naturally fairly early riser, I will try to stay in bed longer. I'll try to get more sleep.
Yeah.
I know it's important.
Do you think your life is going to change post-corona? Just with respect to you, just by saying that, you say, well, I'm going to try sleeping a little bit later. Do you think you're going to do anything? So let's get off of the professional subject for a second. How is Barry going to change his life and his routines moving forward? Are you going to see things a little bit different?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Probably. I'm going to, just to, it's, have a somewhat of a different outlook, thankfully I'm one that's still around to, talk about it. But, it was something we went through that certainly, makes you appreciate, the good things. And that's easy to say, live for today and, appreciate what you have. But I think it kind of hit home a little more this time around. Yeah.
I think people should write down the things that they're, because everybody's got an epiphany, right? Everybody's at least had an epiphany in the past 6 weeks. So it's like legit.
Sure.
Write it down and then put it somewhere where you can see it. Every single day. Get it framed, whatever it is, put it on your fridge, whatever it takes, put it in your wallet. Because I know, like today, I was driving here, right? I hit 3 red lights. I hit
and he
3.
lives 1 minute away.
I'm furious.
Yeah.
Right? I'm furious. I'm sitting there and I just started laughing to myself. I said, RJ, what is the rush?
Yeah.
Dude, what is your rush? Right. I said that to myself and I literally laughed out loud.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I've got to remind myself is I don't need to go from one thing to the next thing to the next thing and next thing.
Right.
Get there when you get there.
Exactly.
I feel like you have just heard some sort of an epiphany or revelation from RJ Padu himself,
Yes.
Mr. Timestamp, Mr. Keep Moving, the busiest man in the world. Holy shit! Remember this. Jerome,
Write that down.
Put this on some kind of I don't know, highlight reel.
Make that the thumbnail.
Yeah.
I cried.
This is big news right here.
Right.
This is big news. Something might be changing in the world.
I have a question about this, the devices. So,
Yes.
so number one, okay, so people can book an appointment with you as the dentist.
Yes.
Is that free?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so then do they need to go through you or could they go just straight to their doctor?
In regards to what?
Getting this kit, getting the medical kit.
This?
Okay, which
Nope.
medical
Getting-
kit?
getting
The
the
sleep
testing.
test? No,
Yeah.
they can
Oh.
go through their doctor for
Okay.
sure.
'Cause I'm
it's
just
a
trying to
medical test.
Yeah.
It's a sleep test. They can do it through me.
Yeah.
They can do it through the doctor. If they do it through me, I usually will reach out to their doctor and say, "Hey, this patient of yours and ours came to see me, and we were suggested a sleep test, but they don't need to come to
The
me.
only reason why I'm asking you is, number one, it's very hard to get in to see a doctor, as it is.
Yeah.
Number two, with all these restrictions, it's going to be hard to see a guy like you. Number three is that we have a guy that we refer to, and he does all virtual consultations, so Marvin of Home Health. So, if people are looking to get better sleep and they want to move this forward, then they can do the virtual consultations with Marvin, and then they can go. Do they get the machines from you, or how does that work?
They can get a machine from me.
Yeah.
I can refer them to. There's a couple. It used to be called Rana Medical.
Okay.
Now it's called. I forget what it's called now. But anyhow, they just changed their name.
Okay.
So there's a company that does home sleep tests, and it's read by. They have respirologists on staff that read them, or they can just go to their family doctor.
Okay.
You mentioned a good point, which is something that since I've been home for the past 6 weeks, I've been doing a lot of webinars, watching a lot of webinars on TV. They're offering tons, I guess. The gurus have got lots of time on their hands. So I've been watching a lot of webinars to do with sleep apnea, etc. One of the big things that's coming, you mentioned telemedicine or online. Well, it's going to be teledentistry, and especially with regards to this, I can do a consultation online. They don't have to come to the office. I can ask them the questions and do the things I can see certain things exteriorly from them, but that's kind of the coming thing: telemedicine and teledentistry.
Extract your own teeth.
That's a little tough. I leave
Get
that
this
to my
kit from
partners.
Amazon.
I leave
Okay,
that
we're
to
gonna
my
we're gonna
partners.
do
Yeah.
a kit.
This is the pliers.
Yeah.
So okay, let's continue down this pipeline. So
Okay.
number one, they either go see you, they go see their doctor. Number two, they get the referral for the kit, the monitoring kits. Number three, they get these kits either from you or from Rana or whatever they're
Yes.
called now. Number three, does this monitoring device cost any money?
Yes. So the home sleep tests, when it's done through Rana or, again, I feel bad, I can't remember. Anyhow, I think they charge about $175 for the
Okay.
test. Might be covered by some medical, maybe
Okay.
not.
Yeah.
Maybe not. In our office, I charge less than that. I charge about
There we go.
$120. Okay, it costs me. That's basically it costs me to have the test read. I have
Yeah.
a physician that I work with that reads it for me. Again, I can't read it. I can read it, but I can't give them a diagnosis.
Right.
You have sleep
Diagnose,
apnea.
yeah.
It's a medical condition. That's key. I would never. A doctor hear me say I'm diagnosing sleep apnea. That's it.
Right.
Anyhow, it's about $120 to have that test done in
Okay.
our office. Okay.
So from there,
Yes.
they get the kit, then they get the readings from you.
Yes.
You give them one of these guys, right? Or you prescribe one of these, or what's the next step? So you
Okay,
find
so
out
the
that they
next
do
step-
have apnea.
Yeah, so it depends on the results of the test.
Yeah.
The doctor, if it's depending on what the outcome, if it's moderate to severe, he's mostly likely going to recommend that they try a Cpap machine, and that's fine. They should. That's what they should do.
Okay.
I can't prescribe a
Got it.
Cpap. They have to do that through their doctor, either through the doctor that's read the test, or they go back to their own doctor and say, I had this test done, and they're suggesting a Cpap, and then they go through whatever channels exactly it is to get a Cpap.
Okay.
If the results come back that they're fairly mild to moderate, and the Cpap might be overkill for them, and a dental appliance is a good alternative, then they'll come and see me, and we'll talk about making an appliance. And go ahead. What's your
Well, I was
question?
going to say, okay, the CPAP, does that cost money?
I'm
How
not
much is
sure.
that thing?
Okay, so I think I think you pay a deductible for that. It changed. I think it used to be completely covered by the government,
Oh.
but now I think they changed. I'm not positive. I think they changed the rules about 6 months or so ago. That I think the patient pays a $500 deductible, and then
Wow.
the machine is covered. And they try when they use the CPAP, they go through different. Some people, there's different masks and different nose pieces, trying to find something comfortable. I don't think the government. I think there are CPAPs like any other electronic technological piece of equipment. There's higher end ones and there's lower end ones. I think the government's just paying sort of for the entry level ones.
Right.
I'm not, again, don't quote me. I'm not positive because I know how they work and what they do, but I have nothing really. I don't prescribe them.
Yeah. So the grand scope of things is that it's going to cost you a little bit of money to get this whole thing. But
Yeah.
that little bit of money could be affecting your entire life. Because
Yes.
if you're unable to stay asleep and you're only getting 2 or 3 hours, you're a walking zombie during the day. Not only are you not fully functioning mentally,
Yeah.
so now you've decreased your ability to earn because you can't think outside the box. Number 2, you're unable to perform physically because you're so tired that going to the gym is just not an option.
100%.
Right? And then number 3 is, what is your health worth to you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You hit the nail on the head. I was going to tell you, I tell, a lot of times, and if you want to ask me about costs, I'm more than happy to talk about that because generally it's out of pocket for people.
Yeah, I'd love to
But
know.
a lot of times people, so, okay, I'll talk about that first. So the appliance I charge on average, and it's not, people say, how much is that appliance? Well, you're not paying for the appliance. You're paying for the treatment. I'm not handing you this piece of plastic and saying, good luck, okay? It's $600. Good luck. We do, like a workup before even making the appliance, deciding which appliance, and there's a whole follow-up process to it, even to the point of 6 months or a year later having you do the patient do another sleep test with the appliance to see whether it's doing what it's supposed to be doing.
Okay.
Regardless, my appliances run between $1,500 and $2,000 for the appliance, for the treatment, I should say.
Okay.
I shouldn't say treatment. And the range is because this is not the only appliance that I use. There are a few other ones on the market, and depending on individual circumstances, whether people are bruxers or clenchers or different things, or what their comfort level is, I might go to a different appliance which might have a higher cost involved with it. So that's kind of the range in our office, $1,500 to $2,000.
Do you know what a sleep machine costs? Like, if I forget the deductible, pretend you had to buy it
I
out of
haven't
pocket.
got a clue.
probably.
I haven't
No
got a
idea?
clue. No idea.
I'd love to
No.
know the price of that thing.
Yeah. But to go back to the point that you made, points, very important. People say to me, well, is it worth it to spend that? I say, all I can tell you is that unmanaged sleep apnea is going to shorten your lifespan. It's going to decrease your quality of life. So only you can decide whether it's a worthwhile investment. I can't tell you.
There's other ways you can make that money back.
Yeah,
Of course.
exactly.
Of course,
You're going to spend it on something else.
You are.
Trust me. You're going to spend it on
100%.
something.
I agree with that.
And I can tell you, not always, but more, it's life-changing.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying just the dental appliance, but if you get someone diagnosed and tested, whether they get onto Cpap or whether they just lose weight, or they get on, if you can help them with their airway, with their breathing issues, it's life-changing.
Yeah, go test it right now. Go and just cover your mouth up for
Exactly.
30 seconds and your nose.
Exactly.
And see how uncomfortable that is. Do that test right now and you'll realize.
And do that 30 times an hour.
Yeah.
Okay, do that
Yeah.
30 times an hour. See
do that while you're
how you
resting,
feel.
watching Netflix today.
Exactly.
And just see how comfortable that is. Now
Right.
go to sleep.
So is
and
it
do
true
the same
that
thing.
a lot of the times that people are like not breathing for a minute at a time? Like, is this?
Yeah.
That's true. Eh?
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
they just snap out of it because their body's going
Yeah.
into survival mode.
Exactly,
And,
exactly. And when they do snap out of it, they usually snap out of it. They'll startle themselves awake and then go back to sleep. They don't even know that they've awoken. They've awoken at sort of a below conscious level.
Yeah.
So their body's woken them up, but they don't even. So you could ask them in the morning, did you have a good sleep? Yeah, no, I had a pretty good night's sleep. Meantime, they were not breathing for most of the night.
Yeah.
And it's and I mean, issues, tiredness during the day is one thing. Car accidents, there's a huge statistic, how many car accidents are attributable to
Sleep, yeah.
sleep apnea.
Oh.
I'm sorry, I was going to mention one thing, just because, a couple things that I thought were important. I mentioned weight loss being one of the things, you can tell people to, try and do on their own to help their situation. The problem is with sleep apnea and weight loss, there's kind of a vicious circle there, okay? People who have sleep apnea have a more difficult time losing weight. People who have sleep, there's a couple of hormones in the body, one that's called ghrelin, which increases your hungriness level, okay? When you have sleep apnea, that hormone goes up. There's another hormone in the body called leptin, which is your fullness hormone. It's the one that tells you that you're full and you can stop eating. That one, unfortunately, goes down when you have. So you got the hunger one going up, the satiety one going down, and you're trying to lose weight.
The
So it's
perfect storm.
Yeah, the perfect storm.
Yeah.
It's a very difficult situation. And again, I'm not trying to jump ahead, but just through what we've been going through here with COVID and that, sleep apnea has a direct correlation to your immune system also. You're not sleeping, You're well, first of all, you've got no energy. Your immune system is compromised, but it also does affect this one particular cell, the T cells or T lymphocytes, which are a huge part of your immune system. Well, when you have sleep apnea, those decrease, and so your whole immunity goes down. That's why a lot of people who are getting real sick with the COVID virus were obese people, heavier people, and I'm not saying they all had sleep apnea, but it's all tied together.
Yep.
I think rest and recovery is often overlooked, and especially with a lot of our members, they want to do more, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's kind of like the mindset is that sleep is not important, neither is recovery. They, most of the time when we talk about, there's a great supplement that we have called Tissue Rejuvenator, right?
Yeah.
And it has all the anti-inflammatory products. It helps build up your joints, but it's not our top seller.
Right.
Yeah. Our fat burning is, now we're getting the word out, but
Yeah.
it's not anywhere near what our fat burning. And so people are more so worried about their fat, but they don't worry about the recovery or the amount of sleep that they're getting.
Right.
So I guess the thing that our viewers should do is a self-test. And you can either your spouse, like ask your spouse, do I snore when I'm sleeping?
Yeah.
And am I like gasping for air? Do you ever catch me doing that? Or if they say no, then go to the second level. Is just put your cell phone not anywhere near you, but put it over onto the microphones on them are pretty good, and then you'll be able to hear that.
Exactly, 100%. And you could take it one step further. There's an app for your cell phone called Snore Lab that basically records you, but it also shows a graph. It shows exactly how.
right.
What's it called?
Snore Lab.
Snore Lab. Snore Lab.
Snore Lab.
It's a
So
great
everybody
app.
go download Snore Lab.
Yeah,
and do
go
a self-test
download
today.
Snore Lab, and that's a good starting point, good indicator. It's got a graph and shows you when you have, mega snoring going on, and it can show where there's some. Again, it's not diagnostic, but it show where there could be some apneic events going on. But it's a good starting point. But there's nothing like having someone else in the room saying, "Hey, he stopped breathing multiple times last night," or she.
Awesome.
So we're at our time.
Okay.
Yeah, look how fast that went, right?
Unbelievable.
Do you remember the question I asked you before we started?
God.
What was the question?
But
Well, how do you stay married for 38 years? And while you're thinking about that, just listening to everything that you just said, I kind of knew, but I didn't really know, and now I do. And I feel that with respect to sleep, it should cost you whatever it needs to cost you in order to fix that. That seems to be probably a big problem or a big reason for a lot of people's problems, you know?
Well, think about this. How much money do we spend to stay awake?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right? How many
Exactly.
coffees a day are we drinking right now?
Exactly.
How many stimulants are
Right.
we taking just to keep our bodies awake?
Yeah.
So why would you invest that same amount of money on getting a good quality sleep?
Yeah, exactly.
Barry, how do they get a hold of you, and where do they find you?
Yeah.
So I'm at Polo Park Dental Center. I have my own little niche practice within that called Polo Park Sleep Solutions, but Polo Park Dental Center is where I'm located.
Okay.
Where
with
exactly
a
is that?
great crew of people. We're located right beside Polo Park, right beside the bay in the old CKY building.
Okay.
If I told you the name of
What's-
the street,
what's the
Jack
restaurant called again?
Blick Avenue.
There's a restaurant called Chorus.
Chorus,
Right next
right?
to it.
Oh, yeah.
That's
I know
right.
exactly
Right,
where it is.
and right next to that store, Atmosphere. And I would just like to say one thing,
Sure.
just to
No problem.
and more to RJ. I think it's an important point just to throw out there is that with little kids, you have to watch little kids can have sleep apnea too. And if a kid's snoring or that's not normal.
Okay.
Sometimes oh yeah, my kid.
What's a
snored. So
snore?
kid-
What's a snore? Like,
the breathing issues or any of that, it's snorting or
Okay.
even just like heavy, rapid breathing at
Yeah.
night. It's just something that it can happen in kids too. It's
Have you heard
important.
that?
Nary, you got that?
Have you heard that from
And I don't-
Judder?
Not like what he's describing.
No.
So, but close.
It's something that
Yeah.
needs to be
So I'll
snoring.
be monitoring it.
Snoring in kids can
Yeah.
can be correlated to ADHD, bedwetting, all kinds of behavior. So I don't treat that. I don't treat kids, but I know someone who does. There's a pedodontic dentist, but I just thought it's important to know that this is
Sure.
not just an adult thing.
So I don't want to rush you off. I'm
No
just trying to
problem.
be
No
respectful
problem.
of your time. Is there anything
Yeah.
else that you want to talk about, like the kids thing? Did you want to dive into that just a little bit more? Or?
Well, I just think it's important for parents to know that, parents of young kids to know that, that if they're seeing any signs of the kid having some breathing issues at night, whether it's snoring or night sweats, things like that. Though these aren't, normal things. A kid shouldn't be breathing through his mouth when they're sleeping. They should be breathing through their nose. And if there's some of that going on, and again, I say there's strong strong evidence that it's related to ADHD and bedwetting and different learning disorders. So I just think it's something that shouldn't be overlooked.
Yeah.
Should
So
be
we
addressed.
should monitor ourselves, and we should monitor those around us.
Absolutely.
Love
All
it.
right. So from this, I always like to recap the takeaways.
I love
All
Rick's
right?
points.
So one thing you made a point about working out, half-hour routine. You love that.
I love
right?
it.
Great.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why you've been able to stick with
Yes.
FICLM. All right.
Yep.
Snoring is a vibrating tongue, and it's more of a problem for the person you're sleeping with, not necessarily yourself.
Yeah.
Apnea is when your airway actually closes, and it is weight related. But there's more awareness of it, so that's why the problem seems to be a little bit larger than in
And
the
more,
past.
and probably more obesity than there was too.
Yeah. So measure your neck,
Yeah.
17 inches. Good rule of thumb. If it's more than that, you may have an issue.
Is there a measurement for women?
No, not
No
that-
rough
not that-
estimate?
No rough estimate. It
Okay.
can go with, but again, if a woman has a 17-inch neck, on her
What about the 17-inch pythons?
Yeah, exactly. But again, that's just that in itself is not
No,
to go
no.
measure your neck and
Yeah.
run
Yeah.
to see your doctor.
Get the
because-
snore lab.
Yeah, get the snore lab. See
Okay.
if someone's telling you. Are you not feeling well? Are you tired during the day?
Sure.
There's lots of things to consider.
Okay.
And that was
Okay.
actually my last point. And sleeping is healing.
Sleeping is
And
healing.
you're up, doctor. Tell me, how do you stay married for 38 years? You got 30 seconds.
Extremely tolerant wife. Extremely tolerant.
That's
a
a good
tolerant
one.
wife.
A tolerant wife. I have to say that. Extremely tolerant wife who forgives and forgets on very short notice.
Love it.
Sometimes I think I'm
Nailed
going to
it.
be in the doghouse
Nailed
for
it.
weeks, and I get out sooner than expected.
Great
Yeah.
advice. All right, everybody, we're going to wrap it up. Dr. Barry Weinstein came in here with a whole bunch of great nuggets for us. We need you guys to like, comment, and share this video. That really helps us out here to make sure that we keep it alive. So, everybody, we're going to see you later. Podcast number 33. We are done. Mr. Barry Weinstein, look at this guy dancing. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No
Thank you.
problem.
That was great.